Welcome back to Top Ends, the show bringing you all the action from England and Italy. It's off-season edition. You know what it is. England and Italy did not have the best week internationally. We won't talk about that as much. I am your host, Matt, joined by my co-host, Dom. Dom, how you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Glad to be back. A little Wednesday podcast instead of the normal Monday, but we always gotta come through with the weekly content for everybody. So feeling good, man. How are you?
You got to adapt and overcome, as they say. This episode of Top Bins is brought to you by Beano Board. Beano is the next big tabletop game for your man cave / she shed. Think paper football meets foosball, and you've got Beano. Beano Board is a game and lifestyle brand based in Phoenix, Arizona. Beano's goal is to provide the highest quality boards and a true brand experience. Every part of the boards, every part, have been tested time and time again for the best possible playability so that every Flaker's experience is a positive one. Bring the world together with Beano and hear someone's story from the other side of the pitch. You can go right now to beanoboard.com and use our code BINHOUSP, BINHOUSP for 10% off your order, including the newly launched limited edition Ultraviolet board and Team USA and Team Mexico merch. That's code BINHOUSP for 10% off your order at beanoboard.com. Team USA and Team Mexico, that reminds me of the 2026 World Cup coming up, which is obviously going to be a North American bid, largely American led. Dom, we find out tomorrow what the host cities in America are going to look like. Our beautiful home city, we don't live there, but it is our home city of Philadelphia, is a contender. How much money are we spending to go to as many World Cup games as possible? What kind of leveraging situation are we putting ourselves into here? Hopefully Philly is one of them, much easier and inexpensive, at least comparatively.
2026, I may have a kid by then. So, I don't know if I'm going to have the money to be able to do that.
Kids can go to games still, and I think they get in free. So I think if they're small
Yeah,
enough
he's
to
not taking
hide,
up a seat, right? He's going to,
yeah, you just hold them. I think it depends very much on the size of the child, but looking forward to that. Looking forward to get some clarity on what plane tickets in what parts of the country not bad in 2026. Last time we brought you 5 players from the Premier League that you're going to be hearing a lot about over the course of the summer. Whether they actually get a transfer move or not remains to be seen. Whether it's a loan move or whatever, who knows? But you're going to hear their name a lot, and you hear these names and you hear them repeated all the time. And I think sometimes people just want to know a little bit more about this player, and not just like he's good, he's bad, whatever. Just a little more statistics. What kind of player is this? Get a small little profile, a small little piece. And I think especially Serie A, not as many eyes on it. So let us be your guide for these 5 names, for these 5 players that we've watched. We did some statistic deep dives on to give you a clear insight about them. First name here, the Serie A defender MVP Bremer. Not my favorite player in the world, but I have to say, I've warmed up to in the last few weeks. I think I was a lot more harsh on in season, doing some reflecting, watching his tape back, looking at the stats. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's a spot for him. I don't know that he's top level type of player, but I think he could be at I think he could be a Champions League level type of player. I don't think that's unbelievable for him. But yeah, there's a reason he won the defender MVP, tops the charts in blocks, interceptions, and tackles. He has just great anticipation and timing. When you see him making these challenges, he just knows exactly when to throw his body, and it knows exactly how to read opponents and get himself between the attacker and goal, which is a skill in of itself. I don't want to diminish that, but he's definitely much more of a physical defender, which again I think there's still room for in the game. It's not like you have to play just one certain way, but there is a part of his game that I think is clearly lacking, and that is passing, and that has been my hit on him really the entire year, because this is not the first time that he's been linked away from Torino. 85.1% pass completion. That is not good enough. If you look at some of his contemporaries, so I compared him on FB Ref. Here are the names, and 2 of these other names we'll also hear in the show. But Bremer, Milan Skriniar, Virgil van Dijk, Nikola Milenkovic, Harry Maguire, Pau Torres. Just to give a good blend of some different styles of center backs, but also, again, some guys that, could be transferred. Virgil van Dijk, for me personally, best center back in the world. So I always like to compare, in a group of 5 players, I like to compare a clear standout to see like what the actual like standard is for being a world class, one of the best in your position. So Skriniar has a 93.3% pass completion rate. Van Dijk a 90.8. Milenkovic at 89.8. Harry Maguire 87.3. Pau Torres 86.1. You kind of want to be a little better than that. Torino isn't the best team, but they're certainly a mid-table team. They're a relatively good squad, and I think he's part of the reason why. But the passing is what worries me a little bit, especially if he's going again to a team like Inter. That's not going to drop off in any way, and if he's potentially Skriniar replacement, that's a big question mark for me in terms of what does he have. Also, not good in the air either. He has a 53.3% aerial duel rate. That is not good. That is not good enough at all for a defender. That's really, really lacking. And I think I don't know what the issue with that is, but again, from those same players that we just compared, Skriniar with a 58.8% aerial duel rate, Virgil van Dijk with a 77.1, Milenkovic with a 76.7, Harry Maguire 73.9, and Pau Torres 64.1. So lacking again behind some of his contemporaries, that you want to see a lot better. But it's strange because he is such a physically dominant center back, yet is not physically dominant in the air in really any way. So that's a big concern for me, again, especially if you're going to a team that's playing in the back 3. That could be a way that you're targeted and a real weakness. So he's not a huge asset in possession. And I think he's more like play style dependent. I think he's definitely he's got a good physical profile, but I think he's definitely lacking in polish. I think he's lacking in, again, the passing and aerial duels really worry me because those are 2 of the 3 big pillars, I would say, of being a very good center back. Right now, I think he's probably just a good center back. I think if he does move to a team like Inter, he's not the worst, like 3rd or 4th option on a team, but he's not going to be this like next level top talent, I wouldn't say. I don't think that the tools are totally there.
To kind of counter your point on the aerials, he is in the 99th percentile for aerials, 1, however, with 4.8 per game. So, or 4.8 per 90, which, that's just stat numbers, right? The eye test may say otherwise.
But the problem is he's being targeted so much because the other defenders on his team are so much better in the air.
Which is what we've talked about before, right?
When your success rate is that low, teams know that and are willing to lob the ball at you. So
his per 90 stats are crazy. But like you said, he's on a team where, they are dealing with a lot of pressure from a lot of the other teams. And he's got to be the guy to step up and get in place. So, he's been on display for Torino. It's only a matter of time to see how he does at a bigger club. So if Inter does come in, it's going to be hard to break through that line. There is an open spot because of somebody who, I don't know if he's already been signed, but has Bastoni moved to Tottenham already?
So Bastoni was going to make this list, but his agent came out and said he's not leaving. He's staying at Inter. And Bastoni Bastoni has been like not wanting to leave either. He seems very happy there. And I had said that if Inter sell him, it's a massive mistake.
Agreed.
So it seems like they might sell. It's either De Vrij or Skriniar. Skriniar is someone that, to me, spoiler alert, is in this 5 list, and that's why we profiled him, because I feel like he might be the most likely to leave. PSG are really in for him, but as far as Bremer, I think there's just something missing that maybe I'm not getting. Again, he does all the counting stats really well. I don't think he's terrible. There's clearly some talent there, and the ability to be like the stopper that he is huge. And like you said, he's in the 99th percentile in so many of these things, and that certainly speaks for itself in a lot of ways. But I think it also speaks for itself that a lot of times, center backs and defenders of teams that are under threat a lot more are able to put in a lot more blocks and tackles and things like that. You look at the lists, and someone like Virgil van Dijk is at the lower end of a lot of tackles and defensive actions because he doesn't have to. Because not only does Liverpool so dominate a lot of games, but teams don't attack him because they know it's pointless because they know that they're not going to get anywhere. So Bremer, I'm looking forward to seeing where he ends up. Inter does seem like a really likely destination for him. He's been like to Bayern as well, which I don't totally see that, especially under Nagelsmann's system. I would be a little surprised to see Bremer there, but yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how he develops. He's like relatively young for a defender, at least. There's still room for him to grow, I would say. Defenders can often be a little bit of late bloomers too. They can add phases to their game. So I don't want to make it seem like this is it. This is all he is. But as he is right now, not like my most favorite defender in the world. And I'm a little, and that's going to be, I think, a highlight for a lot of these players. And like, I think still just needs a little bit more, including this next guy, Victor Osimhen. 14 goals, 2 assists this year in the league. That was off of 11.5 expected goals and 1.8 expected assists. We've talked a lot about him on the show, in how much he carried Napoli's attack so much this season when, guys like Insigne weren't able to do it, and depending a little too much on Politano, and Mertens didn't come to form till like the second half of the season. But high volume shooter and goal threat with plenty of speed. You watch him for 10 minutes and you realize he's very often the quickest player playing in that game. Still lacking in some areas of creativity. He's definitely shown flashes of like getting to the channels and taking it to the wing and being creative in that sense. I think that's an area of his game he can definitely develop. As it is right now, I don't know that it's fully developed, which is fine because he's on the younger end. I think you're not buying like a finished article here, but I think there's definitely room to grow, and the creativity can definitely improve. Right now, as it is, he's just a pure shooter. He is a striker in kind of the purest sense, in a little bit of a renaissance, little bit of just like pure number nines, guys that aren't totally involved in build-up play, but that are just gunmen. Especially in Serie A too. There's another player we're going to talk about, Scamacca. That's similar, Vlahovic, very similar type of profile. Immobile, a bit of an older, but still someone that's not totally involved in build-up, is just going to be finishing off moves to score. And someone like Darwin Núñez, right, that's just gone to Liverpool. Erling Haaland, neither of them totally involved in build-up play all that much, but just know how to score goals and are a little versatile on that front end too.
Yeah, you see Osimhen like very involved, like with making forward runs and trying to pin the back line farther down the field to open up space. I hate using this word for African footballers because it's normally overused by the English media, but it does kind of talk about Victor Osimhen. He's very like a powerful striker. He's an imposing presence. He's good in the air. He's always like the games against Milan, he tried to get in the heads of the center backs by, bodying them up and playing very physical with them. And that fits his play style very well. He has the body to be able to do that. And like you said, if he can work on, his link up play and getting creative, because his passing is not the best among strikers. However, like you said, he's more of the pure number 9, that kind of guy in the box that'll get to the ball and put it in the back of the net. So if he can add that to his game, he can become, one of the top, young talented strikers in the world. And it all depends if he decides to stay at Napoli or move somewhere else, and what that may do to him. So, I enjoyed watching him play. If Napoli wasn't playing Milan, he was one of my favorite players to watch on that team. Somebody needed to step up, for Insigne's lack of non-penalty goals for the squad, and he was one of those players to step up to the plate, and they really depended on him. So it would be kind of crazy for Napoli to sell him, in my opinion. However, if the money's good and they can find a competent replacement, I would be interested to see where he'd end up.
Yeah, Patania maybe as the replacement, stepping up to the big side.
Hey, listen, I have an agenda, a positive agenda towards him, but listen, that's it. That is not the guy you want to replace.
Osimhen's interesting because like he's definitely has like good dribbling ability, but again, is not like particularly amazing at it. Like it's not an elite skill, but he is good at winning fouls. Part of that too is definitely his speed, but he is strong as well. He's not like hugely muscular, right? Like he's not like one of these big imposing strikers, but he does have that speed. Definitely does have some strength to him. Where really sometimes the only way to stop him is to foul him, which is a big asset to have. One thing I'd like to see him do to improve on, definitely needs to start hitting the target more. He's a 30.8 shot on target rate. That's not good. That's not good enough because he is a high volume taker. If you just start trending that upwards in a better direction, that's a good spot. So I compared him again. I compared Victor Osimhen, Karim Benzema, Darwin Nunez, Robert Lewandowski, Erling Haaland, to Harry Kane. So just for reference for some of these other top level strikers and their shot on target rate. So Victor Osimhen, 30.8 shot on target percentage. Karim Benzema, 39.8. Darwin Nunez, 51.8. Lewandowski, 49%. Erling Haaland, 41.9. And Harry Kane, 38.9. So, if you trend that just a little bit better in the other direction, that also, obviously takes your goal tally up a little bit. So he's a guy that takes a lot of shots, especially when you consider he played a lot less games than some of these other players. He took more shots than them even. So if he can trend that in a better direction, and he is so much the focal point of Napoli's attack, this is a guy I think that has a lot of growing to do. And if he can hit a lot of those areas, he's going to be fantastic. At this stage right now, he's definitely like a much more direct player. I think his next move is going to be really important because I think it has to be in kind of the right system for him. I don't know that Arsenal is necessarily that place because I think everyone has this idea that Arsenal is this like quick transition team, and they aren't. They're a much more pass heavy team, but I think he's potentially limited at this stage. Him and Scamacca, who we'll talk about later, I think I would like to see just stay one more year in Serie A. I think they could do a lot of help to themselves. That may be just taking another year of development. But we're going to move back to the defenders here with Nikola Milenkovic, a guy who I see but I don't see enough of in terms of discussion. Because I think he is one of the better center backs in Serie A. When you consider his age as well, his physical profile, everything he can do with the ball. I think he's kind of a gem. I don't think he'd be tons of money from Fiorentina either. Apparently, take this with a massive grain of salt. He has a 15 million euro release clause, apparently, or at least gentleman's agreement with Fiorentina. That I don't know that that's true, but that is what the Gazzetto is telling us. He's a great center back. Again, when you consider his age too, he's definitely a physical defender with a more complete polished game around him. 89.8% pass completion rate, 81.7 long passes, very good and a very good volume. This is and you talk about long passing, that's very important in the modern game now for a defender to be good at, because so often to break high pressing situations or to break lines, if you can hit a clean ball 40-50 yards, that is a huge skill to add that teams want out of their center backs, for sure. 65.8% tackle win rate versus dribblers. That's really good. For reference, Bremer has a 44.4. So Milenkovic does not get moved past very often, and he has good timing as well when someone's dribbling at him. He's a good position player. He's definitely willing to be involved in build-up. This is where I'm talking about with more of his complete game. He's definitely a willing passer, a good passer. He's involved in Fiorentina's build-up play involved a lot in their possession. You have to believe that translates, should he get a move to somewhere else. And he would be a huge asset in that regard. 76.7% aerial duel win percentage. So like we mentioned before, he's good in the air. He's a big boy. He's definitely someone you can imagine being a threat from free kicks and corners. And that's a huge skill. Like for instance, Virgil van Dijk is a 77.1, considered one of the best aerial, center backs in like the top 5 leagues at least. He's in elite company in that regard. The one thing that I think Milenkovic needs to work on, he needs to foul smarter. 9 yellow cards in the league, and he has this like undisciplined times to him, and he sticks out a little bit. And I think part of that could just be his youthful indiscretion, let's call it. But I see a lot with Milenkovic that I love. This is a guy too that I think we've heard about for like 4 or 5 years now, really since he came from
Yeah.
almost day one when he came to Fiorentina, but especially the last 3 or 4 seasons, has been a name that I think has been kind of whispered. And you're starting to see, this year, I think even a little bit last season, where people started to turn on to the idea that he's just a very good center back. And I think it's kind of a matter of time before someone wisens up to that. I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet, because I just think he's very, very good, very, very talented. And again, he's very young. This is a guy that you can expect to get better.
Yeah, I think like 2, maybe 3 years ago, this was a name that I was seeing, circled around a lot as somebody who was leaving Fiorentina. And I mean, in the Milan Twitter space, when they were in the market for center backs before Tomori came in and Kier and all that, this was one of the guys that was linked with the club. For real Serie A heads, he's been a name that, like you said, he's been talked about a lot, but now, it's a little more worldwide. People who don't always watch Serie A, like you said, it's kind of been whispered now, like, hey, this guy's legit. I mean, he's got a pretty high percentage for like progressive carries and things like that. He's a very good passer on the ball for what he does and things like that. So, I mean, he's starting to kind of round out his game, and a move to a big club is basically imminent for this guy.
Yeah, I think whoever ends up with Milinkovic, I think is probably getting not just a great player, probably a great deal too. You look at some of the other potential big center back movings, and their prices and their wages. I think Milinkovic could be a good consolation prize, if you would even call him that. But the next guy, certainly not going to be cheap should he move.
No.
Deservedly so. Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, a name that I think a lot of people are familiar with at this point, but maybe I don't know or are totally as familiar with the fact that he's one of the best complete midfielders in the game right now, and I think certainly one of the best box-to-box players that we have. Just good at everything. There's really not a phase of midfield play that I would say Milinkovic-Savic is poor in. He's fantastic. He's big. He's strong. He can dribble. He can pass. He can score. He can defend. Again, I think he is like the prototypical box-to-box midfielder. I think if you were drawing up a box-to-box midfielder, it would look a lot like Milinkovic-Savic. I just think he's fantastic. He has a great physical profile. He had 11 goals and 10 assists in the league this past season. That was on 7 XG and 6 expected assists, so perhaps some overperformance. But then you watch his goals, and he's constantly in the right areas. He has a good sense of positioning in the box. Makes those really good like late runs, but also he does that kind of classic striker thing where someone's on the edge of the box and he knows how to drag his defender away or sneak away from his defender and open up space for himself. We've seen that a lot. He's a threat off corners. He's good in the air. It's just great. There's just not much more else to say about him. He's heavily involved in build-up and possession. For Lazio, he's a key part of that midfield. I think the bigger question is if he's even moving or not, because the last 3 seasons we've gotten these types of rumors. Even already they seem like, hey, they've quieted down a little bit, and part of that is definitely because of the price that he would fetch. But I think like if you're going to go out and spend money, which you're going to have to, some teams are going to have to spend money this summer. Or perhaps this winter, right after the World Cup. But if you're going to spend big money, you are getting a finished article here that is very, very good and among the best in the world. And I just think he's worth it. I think he's worth that. And I'm just surprised against similar to Milinkovic, where it's like I don't know why more teams just aren't all in on this guy. It's go for him. I think he's so good. I think he's fantastic.
There's not much else to say other than that, right? This
Right.
man is just legit, right? He can do it with both feet. He's got a powerful shot for a box-to-box midfielder. That's extremely important because they're not always the guy that's going to be getting into the box to score their goals. He's got technique and kind of like a finesse to his game. Very good dribbler for his size. Very powerful. So I mean, we could spend an entire hour talking about this guy and what he does for Lazio. I mean, every time you watch him, he's always involved in the play. They rely on him a lot. So whatever team he goes to, they're going to have to pay big bucks. I mean, I know he was rumored with Manchester United for a while last summer. It's just a matter of who's willing to pay for that and hoping that he can do it in whatever league he goes to. He is an established Serie A guy. If they sell him to another Serie A club, they're going to have to pay a big premium compared to selling him to another, league where they're not selling him to a rival. You know what I mean? Like Lazio is still one of those teams, although inconsistent, they still made a European spot. They're trying to break into that Champions League top 4 in the table. They're not going to want to sell him to one of those 5-6 teams that are above them in the table because it's only going to make them better and make Lazio worse. So it's something to keep an eye on if he does move, and if he doesn't, what will Lazio do to build around him?
Yeah, to me, like I said, I think of him. I just think of the complete midfielder, has everything, and I think if someone's in the market for a midfielder, I just don't. I don't know how much better you can do than Linkovic Savic. Realistically, I really mean that. Like I just think he's fantastic.
Right.
I don't know. I don't get it. Gianluca Scamacca, fantastic name, fantastic striker. 16 goals, no assists, none. Lone wolf style. Off of 10.8 expected goals this year, 2.5 expected assists. So, maybe some other players could have finished their lunch. I definitely, watching his highlight packages, you could definitely see some areas where just wish maybe someone would finish a little better at times, and he would have had a few more assists. But, one thing that struck me with Scamacca when I was looking at him, especially looking at his statistical profile, similar type of profile to Osimhen. And to me, they were, I never really considered that, but the more I thought about it, and the more I was like, yeah, they kind of are similar. Like they're a lot more direct players. He does get a little, deeper, like he's willing to take touches in the midfield and work passes through there. I think he's also helped by the fact that he probably had a better, had Raspadori and Berardi, probably a better supporting cast than what Osimhen are working with. Certainly, at least in terms of goal production, but also I think in terms of just like creativity. So he has that to depend on, and that's probably why I see some of those skewed gold numbers too, as opposed to very little assists. But he's this big lanky build too, which is interesting. He's not like the strongest player, but he certainly has this like, it's an interesting profile because so often we don't really get guys like him that are kind of on an elite level. And there's a reason that he's been compared a lot to Ibra because he's one of the only other like big tall dudes that has kind of done it at a top level. So if you're gonna make a comp, it kind of has to be Ibra almost. He's not as quick, right? Like, and it's hard to beat when you're that tall. Fair enough. But he has shown flashes that good touch, that good creativity, working out of tight spaces, which again gets him a lot of that Ibra comparison. That's a tough comparison to live up to, of course. He's very good at getting shots on target, and he's willing to drop deeper to receive the ball, which is really good. He's good in the air too. 55.7 aerial duel win rate, which for strikers is not too bad at all. It's actually very good. So that if you put a cross in the box, or if you're taking goal kicks or whatever, taking corners, free kicks, this is a guy definitely to look out for. He certainly doesn't misuse his height, right? Like he's certainly willing to put his head in the area. Not hugely involved in possession. I think that might just be more a system thing, though. Again, when you have kind of the creative players that he had around him, I don't know that there was a need to have Scamacca be like the guy. I think it should also be noted, this is really the first season that he's had like consistent playing time, especially with Sassuolo. He's with Genoa, and that was sort of where he started to make a bigger breakthrough. But this is really the first time that we've seen Scamacca like have consistency and start to have some more rhythm. And again, it is why I caution Osimhen with the same thing. I think another year in Serie A would do him very well. I think he will end up staying with Sassuolo next season. He signed that new contract. I think he has the eyes on, if I spend a year or two more and really develop, I can actually get a much better, bigger move, and probably even be like a bigger part of the national team too. I think by staying within Serie A, you probably, Immobile is probably going to be phased out in the next 2 or 3 seasons. He's already getting some, chances with the national team. And we know that there's probably going to be some sort of, turnover, because of the failings of them in the international level to qualify for the World Cup. So,
sorry, you can finish.
No, keep going.
I was going to say, like, about a year ago is when he started, blowing up on the scene and started getting a lot more of these rumors than what he already had because of his performance in the U23 Euros. Him and Raspadori basically carried Italy for most of that tournament. So He's been this guy, and then coming into Sassuolo, which isn't a bad team, right? They're a upper mid table team. They give the big clubs difficulty, and if he decides to stay with Sassuolo, it's not like he's staying at a lower table team where he's going to struggle if they do sell other players. He decides to stay there. It's not like a career, killing decision if he stays. But I would like to see him at a bigger club and getting those chances playing with higher quality players. Not to slight guys like Berardi and Raspadori, but I mean. He's got that kind of edge to him, right? He's got that kind of killer instinct that a striker needs.
I think what you're trying to say is he's got that dog in him.
Yeah,
he's got a little dog in him.
I mean, he's got the bleached blonde hair right now, so he
has the tats, which I didn't realize how quickly he filled in the tattoos, especially the neck tattoos, because I was looking at games when he's playing at Genoa, and you couldn't really see too many of them, and then all of a sudden at Sassuolo this year, it's like just fully inked, just everywhere.
I think that he's taking on that kind of like stature. Like, people know me. Like, I got this. It's just a matter of, does he let that consume him and not work to improve, and kind of plateaus, and this is as good as he's going to be for the rest of his career? Or, does he take those steps? And I think moving to a bigger club will help him do that. But again, on the other end, I'm at Inter now, I'm gonna, which I think is the club he's most heavily linked with.
Which doesn't seem like it's going to happen, because they've apparently agreed with Dybala, and there's Lukaku train moving forward. So I think it would be very surprising to see. He's only 23. And again, this was really his first established year. Last year he was on loan at Genoa, and has a pretty good season. And then, has a good season again at Sassuolo. Like, this is, I think, where you need to say. What I found interesting with him too is, so he's a 16.5 yard average distance when he shoots. It's very similar to Harry Kane, who's a 16.9. So, he's someone that's kind of taking them almost from the edge of the box. Drifting out a little bit, whereas someone like Lewandowski, right, who when we think of as like the fox in the box type striker, average shot distance is 12.6 yards. So that's interesting. He profiles kind of similar to Kane in some ways, which I found fascinating. And, he obviously, Kane, we know, is a very good passer. And, we've seen his creativity on display a lot in the past few years. And maybe Scamacca gets there. I don't know. But again, he's 23 years old. I really think another season in Serie A would do him well. I think he will end up staying with Sassuolo. I think of, like, if I had to rank, him and Milinkovic-Savic, I think, are the least likely to go. Milinkovic-Savic mostly just due to price, I would say. Whereas Scamacca, I think, probably has had the right people in his ears telling him, let's just stay at Sassuolo at least another year. Maybe Berardi was even telling him that it's not so bad, actually. Like, it's pretty nice here. You can do a lot worse. So that's our 5 players to keep an eye on in Serie A. So if your team is linked with those guys and you're looking for just a little extra information on them, just a little more chat, a little more something to work with. Let's do some transfer roundups. We've had some confirmed sales. One of the bigger ones, Darwin Nunez to Liverpool, £64 million base plus bonuses. Big deal. The arms race at the top between Manchester City and Liverpool continues, because you're now going to have endless Haaland and Nunez comparisons, which is hilarious, because before either one of them even went to Liverpool City, there was already a comparison that Nunez was similar profile to Haaland, that they play in a similar type of way, and they both just like smash the shit out of the ball. Neither one of them knows what finessing means. They just absolutely lash it any chance they get, which is great because it makes the most satisfying goal noises. So you all know when it makes that almost like chain-like sound, it's just like, crashes in the back of the net. So that's exciting. It's definitely going to be an interesting season. He did take Divock Origi's number, 27, which is a bold move. Because listen, if he scores some of the goals that Origi scored in terms of importance, well worth the money, I would say. The Lukaku train gaining momentum. Apparently, Inter getting closer to a deal with Chelsea for some loan agreements, a 2-year loan with some option at the end, and classic Inter fashion. You gotta love it. Christ alive. The love affair between Lukaku and Inter is fascinating.
Listen, I can't wait. I'm praying basically that this does not work out in the same way, that this works out more like the Chelsea thing. Because, right, he was praying, he had this love-hate relationship with Chelsea. Oh, it's where I want to go back. This is where, I started. Like, this is where my career took off, and I can't wait to be back at Stamford Bridge and this and that. And now you see how that happens. I can't wait for Lukaku's second term. I'm going to use that second term at Inter to kind of blow up in his face and just not work out as well. I can't wait to see him argue with Dybala on the field and just I just want nothing but for this to be like, oh, Inter's my home. I love Inter. And next thing you know, the fans turn on him.
I do think it's fascinating what you just brought up too, because I was thinking this a lot. So they've brought in Dybala, which is a fine signing. But now you have Lautaro, Dybala, Lukaku to work in somehow. I'm not sure how they all fit together.
They're going to have to run something like a 3-5-2.
Well, all I'm saying is say some prayers for Nico Barella and Marcelo Brozovic, because those boys are going to have to do some running next year, because there's not a lot of defensive work being done.
Hakan becomes a bench warmer.
Yeah, I tell you that much. So it's fascinating to see how that's going to develop. It does seem like it's close now, though. Like there's going to be some agreement made. It's going to be fascinating. One of the stars of Serie A returns. This one on our notes. What are United waiting for exactly? Because no one could shut up about how Erik ten Hag was going to bring this like massive revolution. This is just for me. This is just for the boys here. But I mean, God, no one could shut up about Erik ten Hag was going to like come in and have all that. Nothing. Literally nothing. Not even an outgoing yet. In fact,
Harry Maguire is still at the club.
Andres Pereira back. Flamengo's like, no thanks. Didn't want him. Yeah, no moves. Apparently, Antony is too expensive for them. Frankie de Jong is literally threatening to throw himself off a bridge if he has to go to Manchester United. He's refusing to even think about it. But Barcelona need to buy Lewandowski for some reason. So they're like, sorry, Chief, you're going to have to go. Yeah, he's like an upset child going to summer camp. Like, he just doesn't want to do it.
He's like, I love Barcelona. This is the club I want to be at. Nah, sorry.
Barcelona's like, It's like the Thanos throwing Gamora off the bridge type of thing, where it's like, we got to get Lewandowski in this club somehow, son. I'm sorry. Listen, we're $500 billion in debt, but we are gonna figure out a way to get Robert Lewandowski, Neymar, and Rafinha at this club this summer. And it's just gonna cost us everything. So I don't know what Manchester United are doing. I don't know what they're getting at. I think the smart thing to do, and again, is just to copy what the other smart clubs do, which is have a lot of your signings done in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So that way, because again, can't forget this. We're going to start having, training camps and trainings and practices back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. It's already going to start back up, in early to mid-July. A lot of the players are going to be reporting again. So it's best to have those deals done, especially in a year like this where there's going to be a lot of fixture congestion. You're going to want everyone in the door as early as you can get it, because you have this Winter World Cup, which is going to be unique for lots of clubs and everyone really, because obviously never been done before. So I'd be a little concerned if I was a United fan, because it's like waiting on something that's not Dean Henderson going to Nottingham Forest. Like let's clear out some players. Let's buy someone, like anyone. We have the money, allegedly. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens there. And they have big question marks. It's a huge summer for them. I think people though. I think if you're being rational about it, I think United can't go in with the mindset that they need to be making the Frankie de Jong signings of the world, because I think that's how they've put themselves in this position. Not that Frankie de Jong would be a bad buy for them, but I think people need to temper the expectations a little bit for this summer for them and for this next season. I think the best thing you can do is have no expectations for United if you're a United fan, and you'll probably have a better time. Yeah. Because last year, I think many people got themselves crushed because Ronaldo comes back. People are talking about the title. or at the very least being back in Champions League. Now that's gone. So I think maybe lowering the expectations a little bit could help. Yeah, England very much look like they're going to be out of Nations League Group A. They had an embarrassing loss 4-0 to Hungary at home. They've not scored a goal in open play in like 800 hours. Gareth Southgate's a genius. What do you want from me?
It's very funny how they played Tomori and Tammy Abraham in a 1-1 draw, and they got all this slack, and then they didn't play them in the next game against Hungary, which is a weaker team than whoever they played prior. Who did they play before the Hungary?
They drew Germany 1-1.
Yeah. So they drew Germany 1-1, which isn't a bad result for England, given everything. So and those two players were getting all the slack. Oh, they're Serie A merchants, this and that. And the next thing you know, they don't get the next game, and they play Hungary, and then they lose. Like, come on now.
John Stones looked great in that one. I'll tell you that much.
Yet somehow Southgate is the guy for the job. That's what people are saying. So
he has not been the guy for the job
since
he got the job.
No, he hasn't.
And as someone who has England in the World Cup group, I say, give him a fucking extension. Keep him. I think England are barreling towards a tough World Cup though, because I think no one ever wants to talk about it because it's unfair, because you don't get to choose this. They just so have happened to had two of the easier runs to like semifinals and finals of major tournaments that you're kind of going to get. Like, they've had their shot. And listen, there's no shame in being like, listen, making to a World Cup semifinal, huge. Making it to a Euro final, huge. Like, those are big accomplishments, right? Like, I don't want to diminish that, but, like, they got a little help there. That's all I'll say. I think they got some fortune, which is fine. It happens to everyone, but we'll see how they fare at the World Cup. But it's not looking good for England at the moment. No. Germany rolled through Italy. Tough one, tough scene. Not the strongest Italy team either, it should be said, but
Tonali didn't play.
That is for me the litmus test on whether or not it's a really first strength Italy team is if Tonali's in there, but not the best defending I've ever seen. I'll say that much.
I'm biased. With Tonali, they drew Germany 1-1. Without Tonali, they lose. So
there you go. The plus minus stats don't lie. There you go. I mean, come on. What are you going to do? We already mentioned that the World Cup 2026 host cities are going to be announced tomorrow. Eagerly awaiting that. Tomorrow also we get the Premier League schedule. Looking forward to that because, it's fun to start already thinking about next season and what that's going to look like. And, I know the fantasy psychos will all be planning out their double game weeks and free hits and all that, which is fantastic. But yeah, we'll get the Premier League. I tried finding when the Serie A schedule is released. It just seems like by July we'll get it. Although Serie A this year is starting a week earlier. They're going to start the weekend of August 13th. And again, that's because of the World Cup, because you can have that mid-season interruption. And a few of the domestic leagues obviously are going to be running a little later. Like this time next year, we'll, for some of these leagues, just be wrapping up. We'll be like a week out from the league ending.
Are the leagues going on hold for the World Cup?
Yeah, they have to. Yes. Yeah. In England, they're not going to have the festive schedule this year because that's right after the World Cup ends. So, you're like your Boxing Day, New Year's Day types of things might be scrapped. New Year's Day might make it, but yeah. And there's even some weird discussion about no Big Six games the weekend before the World Cup because whatever. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. We'll know tomorrow what those games are going to look like, which is exciting. So, looking forward to that. Paul Pogba, by the way, it wasn't our document on, but apparently is going to Juventus. It's not announced yet. We only have 2 more days till the Pogmentary. 2 more days for me to learn how to say the Pogmentary, which may or may not reveal some information about where he's headed, but it's pretty much reached a conclusion now that it's going to be Juventus. He's going to be making a lot of money. Good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it once it becomes official. But, I think I expressed myself very clearly with Paul Pogba last week when I said, I've never seen a player that's so good that has had such little impact on winning at the club level. And he's an enigma to me. I can't quite comprehend Paul Pogba.
Yeah. I have 7 other players. I know that we didn't do this with 7, but I'm going to go through them kind of quick because some of them are very I'm just going to mention them kind of deal. But, Serie A is my league. So I wanted to kind of maybe highlight a couple other players that may be a little in demand over the summer because, as you can see, this is the Serie A summer. So the first one who I wanted to highlight, who I've heard names go around a little bit, is Nahuel Molina, the right back from Udinese, who seems like he's a hot commodity right now. And the reason being, he scored 7 goals in the league this year from the right back position, 2 assists. He seems like a very forward-thinking fullback who would fit better in a team that runs like wing backs in a more 3-back situation or 5-back situation. Is very high shooting, statistics. His passing needs to be improved upon. His defense needs to be improved upon as well. As a right back, that's kind of something that you need to have. You need to be able to do both. So, he's decent. Teams in you don't always see teams in the market for right backs. A lot of the top tier teams already have a solidified fullback. There's only a few teams that may need this player. Somebody else who we did mention earlier in the show, Giacomo Raspadori, who I feel like will just have another year at Sassuolo anyway, though. But he is young; he's 22. He seems like this guy that's always involved in the play.
I haven't seen anything about him moving. Like I've been reading like every rumor article, not once with him. So yeah, he seems super locked in this Sassuolo for the future.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention him because there are, I've seen people like, oh yeah, like Raspadori because he's young, you know what I mean? And another guy in the U23 Euros last summer that was a major player for Italy. Another player, Domenico Berardi, who always just seems to stay at Sassuolo, but he's always in the transfer rumors. 15 goals, 14 assists in the league, one of the best attackers in the league this year, top player. Who knows if he leaves? Because like you said, Sassuolo ain't that bad, right? And if Scamacca decides to stay, I think Berardi will stay too, because I think that's a 1-2 punch in the attack. Another guy who's been linked with my club, but a move away from Roma is Nicolo Zaniolo. But he's very injury prone, so a team that's going to pay a premium for him, because Roma's not going to just sell him for anything. He turns 23 on July 2nd. I mean, he's still a very young player, but he's had 2 ACL injuries already. And for the price that Roma wants him, I don't see anybody spending that kind of premium for him. But I mean, the guy's a good attacker, but his stats are kind of skewed this season because he was out. Another player who always seems to be in the transfer roundup is Andrea Bellotti. But
free agent too. So,
so free transfer. I mean, 8 goals and 1 assist is not ideal from what you want to see with him. He's on the later end of his career. I mean, he's kind of in his quote unquote prime. He's 28. Team looking for another striker, either to add depth or needs the starting striker. That's a guy to go for, especially on a free. I've heard rumors. I don't know if you've seen anything about this, but like Brian Cristante leaving from Roma.
Yeah.
He's a decent, kind of box to box or more holding midfielder. Again, another guy with the Italy U23s. Or no, not U23s, because he's actually kind of older now. People like to think that he's young, but I saw him linked with a move back to Milan. I don't want that. And another one, I just decided to put this in there. I don't think that Roma will sell him, but Lorenzo Pellegrini, if a Prem team comes and pays a good price, maybe, but I don't see him leaving. This guy had 9 goals, 3 assists in the league, 4 goals, 2 assists in the Conference League. He's basically Roma. He's Mr. Roma. He's their guy. But if a team from another league comes and decides to pay a price, he could go. He's 25. Or on the 19th, he turns 26. So, who knows? But I just wanted to kind of highlight those guys, mainly like Molina, Raspadori, which you said you really haven't seen much about him. Berardi, those are the main guys. But there are a couple other people in there that I kind of had a feeling that may be on a move. You could also say more. I'm drawing a blank for established. There we go. More established guys, like maybe Ciro Immobile moves or something like that, because but I don't see that going. No team's going to pay the kind of price that Lazio is going to want for him. He's kind of going to end his career there. So, I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple other guys before we, wrap up everything that, I kind of had, an inkling towards. I would love to see Molina as a kind of backup in Milan and add depth to that right back spot, because Calabria has been a little suspect recently, and then there's Florenzi, so maybe a third guy back there. That could be done. I've been more focused on incoming transfers to Serie A more than outgoing guys from other teams. Within the league, I've been looking more at guys coming from outside leagues into the league. So that's kind of where I've been at.
Yeah. Philip Kostic apparently could be going to Juventus too. That'd be a good signing for them.
I've been seeing a couple Belgian league players get linked with
Charles Catelaire,
Noah Lang and those kind of guys. Yo, have you seen some of the quotes from this guy Lang? He's got like an Ibra mentality. He's got like this, I'm the guy, like that kind of thing. He scored for the Netherlands in their last game. And he looks to the bench to Bergwijn and Memphis Depay and goes like this, saying like all these haters, like they can't stop me. He has tattooed on his finger right here.
That's not a good sign.
Oh man. But I've been looking at guys coming into Serie A, from sort of not like, I don't want to say lower tier leagues, but kind of like that third tier of league where they're still top quality teams there. They're in the Champions League kind of deal, but they're making that step up to the Big Five.
Maybe that'll be a episode for later when we get some actual confirmed, because it's tough right now because we don't have any really confirmed transfers yet. And once we get more clarity, maybe we'll talk about the 5 best incoming players for each league. Maybe keep your eyes peeled on that one. So there's Dom's Sinister 7 of players there.
Sinister 7, oh my.
Dom, anything to say before we get out of here tonight?
Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/SerieA. I stream each one of these episodes on my Twitch channel, as well as you can find this on our Facebook page, the Underground Sports Facebook page, the Underground Sport, or Top Bins Twitter page. Follow me on Twitter at Wash Lifestyle. I've been playing a lot of FIFA still, even though the game's basically dead now. I'm going to try to venture into a few new video games. But I just bought the Rafael Leao Team of the Season card. So, I just keep coming back because that's my boy.
Good to hear.
Anything from you, Matt?
I'm just living the dream. That's what I'm doing. I'm just soaking it all up. That's what I'm doing. I bought 9 books at the library last week because they're having like a $1 sale on books.
Nice.
So I'll be digging into that for sure. But we'll catch you next week. We'll have some hopefully more transfers to talk about. We'll have some players to profile, perhaps. Maybe some international play to discuss. We'll see what's shaking in the news. Don't forget, you just keep it locked in for the off-season stuff. We'll keep it coming. Don't worry. We got you. We'll take.
There's always stuff to talk about.
We'll take care of you till it comes back. Because I tell you, we're already almost halfway through June. I think we are halfway through June. I don't know how many.
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
halfway through June.
Jesus.
You only got like a month and a half left before we're right back to domestic leagues, baby.
I got 3 days of school left.
We're right there.
3 days of school left before summer vacation for your boy. Much needed break. Much needed break, man.
Days off from the days off. I love it.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, we'll catch you next week. Until we catch you next week, we'll catch you next week.
What?